New Yorkers have decided to turn the Big Apple into the Big Crapple. They climbed to the top of Freedom Tower, the new World Trade Center, after the previous World Trade Center mysteriously disappeared. They looked across the Atlantic Ocean and saw London being rapidly transformed into a Sharia-compliant hellhole, and they asked themselves, how can we make that work here? And they realized that all they needed was a mayor like Sadiq Khan, someone who could play the fiddle as the city burns to the ground. Sorry, no fiddle. Music is haram. But New Yorkers found someone even better than Sadiq Khan. They found a 34-year-old Muslim socialist shouting free bus rides, free childcare, and, of course, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Zohran Mamdani has absolutely no credentials, but he does have an amazing ability to combine every deranged far-left policy you can think of with Islamic supremacist victimhood propaganda. And that, apparently, is now enough to get you elected mayor of New York City. I wasn't terribly interested in this meteoric rise of Mamdani. I actually thought it was kind of funny in a you asked for it, New York, and now you're going to get it kind of way. But then I saw that Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib posted this. Our joint statement on the vile, anti-Muslim, racist attacks on Zohran Mamdani. Muslim American members of Congress call out vile, anti-Muslim, racist attacks on Zohran Mamdani. Today, Representatives Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Andre Carson, and Latifah Simon, all four of whom exhibit that same fascinating combination of Islamist and far leftists that we see oozing from Mamdani, released the following joint statement. The vile, anti-Muslim, and racist smears from our colleagues on both sides of the aisle attacking Zohran Mamdani cannot be met with silence. These hateful, Islamophobic, and racist tropes have become so entrenched and normalized in our politics. We know these attacks all too well. At a time of increased violence against elected officials, we cannot allow the attacks on Zohran Mamdani to continue. They directly contribute to the ongoing dehumanization and violence against Muslim Americans. We unequivocally reject the normalization of anti-Muslim hate and fear-mongering and call on elected leaders across our country to speak out. Now, when I see a congresswoman pulling the vile, anti-Muslim, racist, Islamophobic, violence, dehumanization, fear-mongering card from the bottom of the desperation deck, I start wondering why she's trying so hard to manipulate people into keeping their mouths shut. Think about it. 4 Muslims who were elected to serve in the United States Congress are trying to silence critics of a Muslim immigrant who's about to be mayor of New York City by complaining about how they're all being dehumanized and persecuted in this racist, Islamophobic country. When I see something like that, I automatically think, oh, you don't want to answer the criticisms, so you're trying to silence the critics. Now you've got my attention. And when I thought more about Zohran Mamdani, I realized that he's significantly more dangerous than people think. Because he's not just a toxic mixture of 2 political ideologies that destroy societies, he's the fulfillment of a strange prophecy I heard shortly after the 9/11 attacks from my dear Muslim friend Nabil Qureshi. Let's learn a little more about Zohran Mamdani, and then I'll tell you about a very disturbing Muslim prophecy that's about to be fulfilled. But first, speaking of prophecies, Muhammad told his followers in Sahih Muslim, "The hour will not begin until the Muslims fight the Jews, and the Muslims will kill them, until a Jew hides behind a rock or a tree, and the rock or tree will say, 'O Muslim, O slave of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him.' Except the garkid, a thorny tree, for it is one of the trees of the Jews." When it comes to Islamists, their main target right now isn't New York City, even though New York City is quite the trophy. Their main target is Israel. Conquering Israel, by any means necessary, is the main stepping stone on the way to restoring the caliphate, hence the endless terrorist attacks. But as is so frequently the case when terrorists do what they do, it's the ordinary people trying to live normal lives who suffer. Many Christian families in Israel, for instance, rely on tourism for their livelihood. They have shops or restaurants near important sites, so there are usually plenty of customers. Then there's a terrorist attack and a war breaks out, and no more customers. How are mom and dad going to feed their kids? This is what we call economic jihad. Fortunately, there's a way you can help. There's a company called Artza that comes up with a new Bible theme every few months and gathers products around that theme from local artisans in Jerusalem and Nazareth and Bethlehem and other locations and ships them to you in a box. If you sign up with Artza, you'll get candles, Israeli spice mixes, olive wood carvings, mosaic art, decorations, cosmetics, candy, soaps, jewelry, games, all kinds of things, straight from the land where Jesus walked, delivered right to your door. There's a new theme every season, 4 new boxes every year. So, click the link in the description box and sign up for a quarterly Artza box. You'll be helping people out during difficult times and getting some awesome items in return. Now, back to New Dearborn City. New York City. There are 2 political ideologies that never manage to create societies that anyone actually wants to live in: Islamism and socialism. But for some reason, people keep thinking that if we simply combine these 2 political ideologies that bring nothing but delusion and destruction, we'll somehow get a utopia. But let's face it, combining Islamism and socialism and thinking it will produce a good political system is like combining bleach and rubbing alcohol and thinking it will produce a good energy drink. Islamism and socialism, as disastrous as they are individually, do not mix well because they make very different, even contradictory, claims about how to govern. So, when we hear about an Islamist socialist going into politics, we might wonder, is this guy an Islamist pretending to be a socialist or a socialist pretending to be a Muslim? Some people think Zohran Mamdani is an Islamist pretending to be a socialist. Why would they think that? Well, they've noticed that his talking points when he's speaking to Muslims are sometimes different from his talking points when he's speaking to non-Muslims. He always talks about making New York City affordable, but when he's speaking to Muslims, his message is also about Muslims needing to have more political power and about Islamophobes trying to keep Muslims from having more political power.
I'm proud to stand here as the first Muslim elected official to ever run for mayor in the history of New York City. I am proud to be a Muslim candidate running for mayor. As we all know, to be a Muslim in public life is to open yourself up to being called whatever it is that someone may desire. The first day I launched the campaign, I was called a terrorist. Those attacks have only increased. And Andrew Cuomo has started to send pieces of mail to voters across the city of New York that have artificially darkened and lengthened my beard. Alhamdulillah, there are 1 million Muslims in this city. 200,000 of us are registered to vote as Democrats. With early voting starting tomorrow, it is an opportunity for us to show that Muslims don't just belong in New York City, we also belong in City Hall. This election is one where we can finally decide if we want to see ourselves in our own politics.
And like poor, persecuted Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and poor, rich, persecuted Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, he's really quick to pull the Islamophobia card.
Growing up in the shadow of 9/11, I have known what it means to live with an undercurrent of suspicion in this city. I will always remember the disdain that I faced, the way that my name could immediately become Muhammad. To be Muslim in New York is to expect indignity. The dream of every Muslim is simply be treated the same as any other New Yorker. And yet for too long, we have been told to ask for less than that and to be satisfied with whatever little we receive. There are still certain forms of hate that are acceptable in this city. One can incite violence against our mosques and know that condemnation will never come. More than 1 million Muslims in this city existing all while being made to feel as if we are guests in our own home.
Some of Mamdani's rap songs from his short-lived rap career have resurfaced. I've listened to a couple of them, and I'll just say that whatever you think this guy will do as mayor of New York City, whether you think he's going to burn this city to the ground or turn it into a paradise of free everything, we can all agree that Zohran Mamdani will be a far better mayor than he ever was a rapper. His song Salam begins with this.
Assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. After saying assalamu alaikum in an auto-tuned robot voice a bunch of times, he starts rapping about his phooey, his aunt. He says he's worried about his poor aunt because she's a Muslim who lives in racist New York City.
Thinking of my phooey, a hijab on her head. What will she face? What will be done and said?
Turns out she's too scared to leave her apartment or ride the train because of all the Islamophobes.
She doesn't walk outside, doesn't ride the train, cause she's terrified of the common pain.
I don't want to keep torturing you like this, so I'll just read the lyrics. Thinking of my phooey, my aunt, her hijab on her head, what will she face? What will be done and said? Fear, fear, it never ends. A glance, a word, who knows what it will portend? She doesn't walk outside, doesn't ride the train, 'cause she's terrified of the coming pain from the words, looks, grabs and shoves. Man, she knows not who to trust. Zohran was so deeply affected by his aunt's fear that he continues using it as he campaigns to become the mayor of the city that treated her so terribly.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Of course, Zohran's critics pointed out that his aunt didn't live in New York City at the time and that she didn't even wear a hijab. So he had to clarify that he was really talking about his father's cousin, whose fear of riding the subway in her hijab only came to an end because she died.
I was speaking about Zohran, my father's cousin, who sadly passed away a few years ago.
Thank you, Zohran Mamdani, for letting us know about all the New York City Muslimas who are too scared to leave their apartments or ride the train because of all the racist, Islamophobic, hate-mongering bigots in New York City, the most evil city on the planet. But I have a quick question. Are Muslim women in New York City really being horribly harassed and abused by random New Yorkers? Were they being terrorized after 9/11? There are more than 750,000 Muslims in New York City and more than 1.5 million Muslims in the greater New York metropolitan area. Are people pestering them, assaulting them, persecuting them? Zohran says there are Muslim women who live in constant fear because New York City is such a dangerous place for Muslims. If you simply step outside wearing a hijab, New Yorkers will savagely abuse you. It's like the reverse of Iran, where they savagely abuse a woman for not wearing a hijab. Only difference is, it's not imaginary in Iran. Now, think about the hypocrisy here. If a Christian woman said, after 9/11, I'm scared to leave my apartment because Muslims just killed thousands of people, and I'm worried that Muslims might kill me, how would Zohran respond? He'd call her a racist, Islamophobic, hate-mongering bigot. How dare you be afraid of Muslims in general? If a Jewish woman in New York said today, I'm scared to ride the subway because there are Muslims screaming, globalize the Intifada, and I'm worried that Muslims are going to kill me, how would Zohran respond? He'd call her a racist, Islamophobic, hate-mongering bigot. How dare you be afraid of Muslims in general? But if a Muslim woman says, I'm scared to leave my apartment in New York City because of all the non-Muslims out there who are going to abuse me because I'm wearing a hijab, how would Zohran respond? He'd say, look at what the Islamophobes have done to this poor woman. The only way for this city to atone for the fear it's caused this woman is to elect her nephew, or rather her cousin's son, to be the next mayor of New York City.
I get threats on my life.
Let me put this differently. If a Christian woman or a Jewish woman says she's scared of Muslims, is that a rational fear or an irrational fear? Zohran would say it's an irrational fear. But if a Muslim woman says she's scared of non-Muslims, is that a rational fear or an irrational fear? Zohran would say it's a rational fear and that the Muslim woman must be protected at all costs, mainly by demonizing anyone who questions or criticizes Islam and by making her cousin's son mayor of New York City. Some fears are apparently more valid and important than others. Inequality is built into Islam. Don't take my word for it. Surah 98, verse 6 of the Quran. Verily, those who disbelieve in the religion of Islam, the Quran, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, from among the people of the scripture, Jews and Christians, and al-mushrikun, mushrikun are people who associate partners with Allah, will abide in the fire of hell. They are the worst of creatures. Jews, Christians, and other non-Muslims are the worst of creatures. We're lower than pigs, according to the Quran. So who cares what a Jewish woman or a Christian woman is scared of? But Surah 3, verse 110 says that Muslims are the best of peoples ever raised up for mankind. Muslims are the best of peoples. Their fears matter. Just ask Zohran. So, non-Muslims who are scared of Muslims are irrational bigots. Muslims who are scared of non-Muslims are tragic victims of a racist population that oppresses minorities. By the way, who's this coming from? Zohran Mamdani. Zohran's father is a professor at Columbia University. His mother is an Oscar-nominated film producer. And he's about to be the next mayor of New York City. This is a family of immigrants. One's a professor at an Ivy League school, one's a filmmaker, and one's about to be mayor of a city of more than 8 million people. And Zohran can't stop complaining about how Muslims are being horribly oppressed in this Islamophobic, hate-filled country of racists and bigots. Why do people like Zohran Mamdani, no matter how many blessings are showered upon them in America, keep complaining about the horrible oppression of Muslims here? I mean, if Muslims really thought that America is a terrible place for them, why would they want to move here? They want to move here for the same reason lots of other people want to move here. It's just way easier to be successful in the United States than it is in many other countries. So why is Zohran obsessed with portraying Muslims as victims? Because portraying yourself as a victim is the easiest and most effective way to manipulate Americans. If you want Americans to vote for you, even when you have absolutely no qualifications, if you want to block criticism, even when you support terrorists, all you have to do is weaponize people's good intentions. People want to help a victim. So if you want to take advantage of them, be a perpetual victim. Zohran's song Salam is a masterclass here. Certainly not a masterclass on how to rap. It would be more like a masterclass on how to add a C to the front of rap. But it is a masterclass on stirring up sympathy right before promoting terrorism. So, Zohran begins his song Salam by telling everyone about his aunt, later clarified as his father's cousin Zehra. We'll call her Auntie Zehra. Auntie Zehra was too scared to leave her apartment because New York City is so racist and Islamophobic. He starts with that. Then, once he's got his dozens of fans enraged at all the racist New Yorkers abusing Muslims, he says,
My love to the Holy Land 5, you better look 'em up.
My love to the Holy Land 5, you better look 'em up.
My love to the Holy Land 5, you better look 'em up.
Okay, man, we'll look 'em up. Just stop rapping. From the New York Times, the 5 defendants, all leaders of the Holy Land Foundation for Relief and Development, based in Richardson, a Dallas suburb, were convicted on all 108 criminal counts against them, including support of terrorism, money laundering, and tax fraud. The group was accused of funneling millions of dollars to the Palestinian militant group Hamas, an Islamist organization the government declared to be a terrorist group in 1995. Who are the Holy Land 5? The Holy Land 5 are a group of 5 Palestinian American Muslims who were sentenced to a total of 180 years in prison for running a charity that collected donations in the U.S. and funneled these donations to Hamas. The next mayor of New York City says he loves those guys.
My love to the Holy Land 5, you better look 'em up.
But you can't criticize him for supporting the Holy Land 5, because if you do, you'll be just like the Islamophobes who kept terrorizing his poor auntie every time she tried to ride the train in New York City. See, if you convince people that you're the real victim, you can get away with almost anything. Just ask the Pakistani grooming gangs in the UK. If you're the real victim, you can even get away with hanging out with Imam Siraj Wahhaj, who's an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center. Imam Siraj has some powerful advice for young Muslims like Zohran Mamdani.
You don't get involved because it's the American thing to do. You get involved in politics because politics can be a weapon to use in the cause of Islam.
Politics can be a weapon to use in the cause of Islam. It sure can be. So, is Zohran Mamdani an Islamist who's pretending to be a socialist in order to win votes and pave the way for the Islamization of New York City? I don't know. It would fit the previous pattern of 12er Shias. Zohran is a 12er Shia. 12er Shias are the guys who took over Iran during the Iranian Revolution. How did they take over Iran? By forming an alliance with socialists and communists. The 12er Shias, socialists, and communists formed an alliance. They drove out the Shah. They celebrated their victory. And then the 12er Shias executed the socialists and communists. So, an Islamist aligning himself with socialists and communists to take down a common enemy would fit the 12er Shia MO. But socialists and communists also want Muslims on their side, so Zohran could be a committed socialist or communist using Islamic talking points to get Muslims to vote for him. Not enough to go on yet. It's always a concern when we see someone who's been handed everything in life moaning and wailing about being a victim. And it's a bigger concern when we see him openly praising a group of men for funding a terrorist group. There are also some other issues, like his response when he was asked to condemn the phrase globalize the intifada, and he said, well, it's not the language I would use, but intifada means uprising. The intifada in the early 2000s involved lots of shootings and more than 100 suicide bombings, and it resulted in the deaths of around 1,000 Israelis and 3,000 Palestinians. When people on New York City college campuses start screaming that this needs to be globalized, seems like something a future mayor should condemn without qualification, unless he actually supports it or he's worried about upsetting his voters who support it. But here again, an Islamist, a socialist, or a communist could all run a campaign like this while trying to get political power. You don't always know where they really stand until they get the political power. But what Zohran really is doesn't matter a whole lot for two reasons. One, Islamism, socialism, and communism would all be catastrophically bad for New York City. Pick your poison, any one of them leads to a disaster here. Two, no matter where Zohran's loyalties lie, this guy becoming mayor sends a dangerous message to jihadis. My concern here is based on 3 pictures I saw 24 years ago while I was in college. My best friend back then was a Muslim named Nabil Qureshi. Nabil eventually became a Christian, so I had him send me the pictures for occasions just like this. A few months after the September 11th attacks, Nabil showed me some pictures that were being passed around by his Muslim cousins and friends on the internet. Nabil thought they were absolutely hilarious. The first was a picture of then-President George W. Bush as a Muslim, and I have to admit that one was pretty funny. Old W looked like he had joined the Taliban. The second was a picture of the Statue of Liberty with Lady Liberty's face covered by a veil. That picture wasn't so funny. It was the Statue of Liberty, a symbol of freedom and justice, covered by a full veil, a symbol of oppression and Sharia law. Now, those 2 pictures made their way around the internet, so lots of people have seen them. But the third picture is the one that was a bit more disturbing, and for whatever reason, Muslims kept this one to themselves, so it didn't gain much attention. I'm talking about a photoshopped picture of New York City covered in mosques and minarets. In the bottom corner, it said, New York City, 2006. It was supposed to be a postcard from the future. Again, this was 2001, shortly after the 9/11 attacks. But the postcard was from 5 years in the future. The idea was that in just a few years, New York City would be dominated by Islam. The terrorist attacks had cleared the ground for the construction of new mosques, and they led to an eventual victory. So, this was a prediction, a prophecy, if you will. There were Muslims who believed that the 9/11 attacks would somehow, by the power and wisdom and plan of Allah, lead to Muslims taking over New York City. They were off on their timing by almost 20 years, but it looks like they were correct. And they are going to be very, very encouraged by Zohran's victory, no matter where his ultimate loyalties lie. New Yorkers are voting to send a message. And the message is, hey jihadis, you were right about us. Nearly 25 years after 9/11, we're handing control of the city to a Muslim who really, really doesn't seem to have the best of intentions. Dangerous message. And that's why Zohran Mamdani is more dangerous than you think. He's the fulfillment of a 24-year-old prophecy about 9/11 leading to the victory of Islam over New York City. You asked for it, New York. And now you're going to get it.